super chats.
Ridiculous. Absurd.
Bring you all this bloodshed.
Oh, there we go. We got some coming through. We got some. They're waiting for the break. They're waiting for the break. Get them in. We'll let a couple come through, then we'll continue on with the show. $100 TTS if you guys would like to get them in. Do you want some chocolate milk or? I have chocolate. I'm not. That's not a troll. I have chocolate milk.
Maybe later. That sounds good though.
Applesauce.
I do like chocolate milk.
I should offer both.
I'm good for now. I
no
appreciate
applesauce.
it.
Okay. Chocolate milk.
Maybe later. I'm
Strawberry. Okay. All right.
Beer for me.
We got. Let's see. This chat coming through from Jason. Hey, thank you, man.
Jason Castle donated $100. Olivier, so according to your logic you would have to agree, since women are stronger than children, women should not have abortions, correct? Thank you, Mr. Enigmatic, for the question.
No, you can bring the beer in the corner.
I can respond to that quick. I mean, we can get into the abortion topic because I think it would be interesting. But
he doesn't believe they're people.
No, I'm at earlier stages, no, but we can get into that conversation.
Yeah, you can come this way. Go ahead.
I think just generally, when we're talking about the abortion discussion, I don't think that follows because I don't think that they're children, and I also don't think that, at least legally, they should be compelled in that way if we were to grant fetal personhood, though maybe there's a moral argument to be made in the event of granting fetal personhood, but I don't think that would be legally compelled.
Okay. And we have, let me just read that. They're never sure about, okay, here it is.
Plowemal donated $100.
Thank you, man.
They're never sure about any definition or anything really until it comes to calling you insecure about you not wanting your wife thinking about other men while having sex with you.
Pure cope,
Pure
dude.
leftoid cope.
But remember, when I asked him, wouldn't you prefer to have a woman who's had sex with other men before? Yes. It's like, yes.
I wouldn't want to date a virgin. That's true. I wouldn't.
I know. You want to have...
It doesn't follow from that it means ran through, Andrew. You don't
What
get
is
to make
ran
that false
through?
dichotomy.
What is ran through?
Fine, yeah, then 1,000 people, sleeping with 1,000 people, then
20,
probably not.
20?
I have an exact number in my head, Andrew. It's
Well,
not,
then
it's
what do
not
you mean? Why are you saying ran through?
Hold on, because of I'm not saying that it follows that I don't want any woman who's had sex with like an infinite number of men, okay? It's a balancing act of so many different traits.
Oh,
so I
but you
don't
want
think
her to be able to have at least as much experience as possible so that she can make the determination you're the bestest, right?
No, not necessarily the bestest. Of course not.
Don't you want your woman to think you're the best?
Wait, if I wanted her to think I was the best, I would just do what you do, which is
I
only
know.
marry virgins.
Don't you want?
Which is only marry virgins.
Wait,
I don't want
don't you want your woman
to think.
By the way,
I'm
I didn't say that's
falsely.
what I do.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying the position that
So tell me,
that you're advocating.
Would you
Andrew.
Would you prefer that your woman thinks you're the best?
Because I am the best, not because she thinks I'm the best. Because
so then
she's
she would
falsely-
need a pretty large comparative sample to make sure that she knew that you were the best, right?
I don't necessarily think that is the only criterion here. If I dated a woman and she had better sex with another man, and for other reasons, like for example, in relationships,
would you want her to tell you about it?
The sex can be great.
Yeah, would you want her to tell you about like, John ate my pussy so much better than you?
Not during the act or something like
Yeah,
that.
but
In that way, I think that would.
What
be
if she
weird.
was like, "Can you just do this like John used to?" Would you be okay with that,
Andrew? There is a difference.
Would you
between
answer my question? Would you be okay with that?
Not in that language.
Why?
Not in that language.
Why?
Because then that
But
is
she
just being
is
mean.
actually asking you
Hold
that
on,
because John
hold on,
did it.
Hold
though,
on,
right?
because there are different ways of communicating a message. If she was like, because what that does is that's just saying you are inferior. What instead the question could be is, hey, in previous relationships, I really liked it when this guy did this.
So you want her to lie to you?
No, I don't want her to lie to me.
Why is she asking you to do this thing, though? If she's asking you to do the thing, and in her brain, she's asking you because this other guy did it and she really likes it, right?
Wait, no, she can tell me that it's another guy.
So can you do this thing that John used to do? I really liked it.
During the act or just in conversation?
In conversations.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so you wouldn't mind hearing about that?
No.
It wouldn't bother you a bit?
No. I mean, if she's constantly talking about the sex that she's had with other guys, then that would be a little bit strange.
Now, let me ask you this. How do you think it would go over if you were with your girlfriend and you were like, look, the problem is that like Stacy used to really suck my dick good and you just don't. And so what you need to do is get at least 2 more inches of yaw down your throat.
Okay.
Do you think
that's incredibly crass and crude?
So what you would do instead is lie, right?
I would not lie.
What would you say?
I would have conversation with her that in previous relationships.
But in your head, you really want her to suck your dick like Stacy.
I think you can, but I just don't think you have to say it in such like
but you know
obtuse language,
how you
Andrew.
can do it without lying?
Oh, you don't have sex with anyone ever.
Isn't that true?
And be a virgin.
How is that not having sex with anyone ever?
Wait, before you have sex with one person?
Yeah, so necessarily, if we're talking about
Andrew,
exactly.
That's a really uncharitable.
No, it was totally charitable. You were obfuscating.
No, I was not obfuscating.
You were obfuscating. So the question is, right? Why would you not prefer, if it led to more happiness for your woman, she was actually objectively happier, right? And you were objectively happier. Why would you prefer to have a higher sample size to compare yourself against if it led to like these worser outcomes in relationships?
What do you mean worser outcomes? What would the worser outcomes
They're less happy. Less happy because they are making comparisons to other people where those comparisons don't need to be made.
I think there's a balancing act between the truth and happiness. Do you think people like live? I mean, this is a really interesting way to put it. Do you think like living in like bliss where you don't know reality but are really happy is preferable to being less happy but being in tune with reality?
No, I think actually this goes to my point, not yours, right? So I think that you don't need to do heroin. I think you don't need to do heroin to ever make a comparison, right, between like beer and heroin. I like beer. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep drinking it.
Sure.
I'm not going to do heroin though.
But isn't heroin different than beer?
Could be.
Isn't heroin different than beer?
But hang on. But isn't Chad different than you?
It's sex, Andrew.
And sex is very different with people, isn't it?
Sure, it can be.
Yeah, great. So the thing is, it's like, so I have a beer, right? Heroin could be fucking amazing.
Okay.
It could be fucking like the shit. Okay. So it could be black tar, like laced with some fucking insane shit. I could feel like I'm on cloud 9.
The shit.
But I'm not going to do it, right?
Sure.
And I still like beer.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not going to like, why do I need to have the comparison to know what I'm missing here?
So what I think is going on here with that is there are a lot of negative outcomes associated with heroin. You would say there's a lot of negative outcomes with promiscuity. Wait a second. Do you want me to let me? Do you want to let me finish what I was saying before you say that? You're going to say that the comparison is there's a lot of negative outcomes to promiscuity.
Yeah.
What I would say is I don't think those outcomes are necessarily related to the sex that the people are having. I think it's a lack of communication. I think it's largely can be a lack of consent.
Then why is it
I think it could be because you.
Then why are
have,
virgins reporting happier sex lives, dude?
They're reporting happier sex lives. I don't because they prefer that
because they don't have a comparison.
Hold on. But you are. I'm so confused.
Because they have no comparison. It's so simple, and it's like, do I need to compare heroin with beer to like beer to have like this ongoing long-term relationship and be very happy with beer? I never need to take heroin. Why is this?
Why would you ever try another beer?
Why is there necessary preconditions here? Right. Well, here's the thing. Right. You're
satisfied with that beer, right?
Yeah, I would say that sex for a woman with like a 6'6" man, right, versus a sex with a woman with like, I don't know, a 4 foot fucking tall pygmy dude, right, is going to be so fucking different on scale. It's going to be more akin to like this and something like heroin than it would be between light beer and heavy beer, dude.
I don't think, I mean, we're completely going out on a limb here. I don't think it at all necessarily entails that someone who's taller is going to be better at having sex. There's
no. It's the idea of attraction level, the idea of well, I mean, there's all sorts of massive factors which would go into this. So, but I do think that it is the case, right, that if you have a lesser sample size, right, you seem to be making this claim like ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss with heroin, isn't it?
Wait, we know the bad things.
We know the bad things for promiscuity.
Hold on. And this would go to the question of heroin. If there were, and people have proposed like safe injection sites for people to do it safely. If that leads to them being better off, then yes, I'm in favor of them getting the good without the bad.
Don't you?
And I don't think they're inherently intertwined. I just think they so often are.
As a harm reductionist,
and they can't be separated.
So as a harm reductionist, don't you think that if we have heroin injection sites and things like this, that you're normal, like I'll give you a perfect example of this. The pro-marijuana crowd, right? Let's all smoke weed, right? They said once marijuana is legal, it's only going to be the people who were smoking it before who just won't go to jail, right? But that's not actually how it happened at all. What actually happened is after marijuana was legalized, now it's advertised fucking everywhere nonstop, and tons of people who ordinarily would never have smoked marijuana are smoking it. Tons, right? It creates a normalization, and the normalization creates the ability to have the discourse around propaganda. This is actually good.
What?
Right? Yeah. So, like, for instance, beer commercials. Do you think beer commercials would lead more people to drink or less?
Probably more people.
Probably more. That makes sense to me. It follows. Same thing with legalization of a thing. Okay. It generally seems to lead to more of that behavior, not less.
This isn't a moderation thing, right?
Well, actually, it is a moderation thing.
But your moderation thing is just only one person. And I'm saying that there is a... There can be
no. My moderation thing is that every subsequent person you now have more experiences to compare to for negative experiences when you never needed to do it, just like with drugs. Just like with drugs, shrooms are better than heroin, beer is better than me, right?
Wow.
It's all a negative connotation of bad behavior.
I read a book, and then I read a better book, and that book made the first book seem less good, and I read another book, and it made both books seem less good.
The problem is that following your logic, you're fucked on this one, because following your logic, if we're talking about books, right, what's the harm, generally speaking, of reading Lord of the Rings and then reading like The Sword of Truth and thinking The Sword of Truth is less good than The Lord of the Rings? You want to have those comparisons for knowledge. Those are actually good comparisons. Sure. Not so good. Like, nobody's ever going to report their happiness level. Their general wellness level in society has decreased because they read The Lord of the Rings. And then after that, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, bro. They definitely will do that with drugs. And they will definitely do that with relationships, especially interpersonal ones, because they're elongated. Relationships are elongated.
I guess so. Then I'm curious for you. Do you hold the same standard for men and women, that it's bad for them to have promiscuous sex and they should wait until marriage?
I definitely think that promiscuity in men is a fucking problem.
Okay.
100% hold the same exact standard. But here's my caveat. It is generally less damaging overall in society if men are promiscuous than women are. Generally.
And based on...
So here's generally why that is true. Now, again, the caveat here is both are bad.
Okay.
So I will make this distinction that if there's no male promiscuity, there can't be female promiscuity. You agree with that? And same thing, if there's no female promiscuity, there's not going to be male promiscuity, right?
Well, unless there were same-sex relationships, but yeah.
Between men and women, dude.
Okay, well, you said a general prescription on society, and I was putting... Fine, okay.
First of all, in same-sex relationships, even when they're married, there's massive amounts of promiscuity by the numbers, right? The unfaithfulness rating for married gay men is outrageous. The amount of sex parties they have, outrageous. The amount of promiscuity is fucking outrageous. Anyway, so there's that.
Well, statistics on that, we would have to look at...
The statistics aren't even questioned on that.
Hold on. What do you think gets reported more?
Bro, what?
What do you think gets reported more in terms of infidelity? I think within same-sex relationships, because
it's easier with same-sex relationships because the sample size is so small.
It's also much more normalized within those communities. There are a lot more gay men.
And that's bad, though, right? That's not good, right?
I think it's bad if they're not informing their partner the same way it's bad if a heterosexual couple is not informing their couple.
So wait a second. Wait a second. So you think then that if you're in like a heterosexual married relationship, if it's an open relationship, that's healthy?
It can be for certain people.
No, it's not healthy for basically anybody. They almost all, like 90% of them, actually, no, it's higher. It's like 95% of them fail. Open marriages, 95% fail. Open relationships, like 95% fail.
Stats,
it's insane.
Where are you getting the stats from, Andrew?
Yeah, so these stats actually came, I think there was a combination of Pew Research, but there was, and the only reason I know this one off the top of my head, that it's 95% is because of Cuck Destiny, that this was quoted at him nonstop, right? And what happened with his relationship?
I have no idea. I don't follow him.
He was married in an open relationship, and guess what? Everyone told him, bro, it's going to fail. And guess what happened?
Okay.
It failed. And why did it fail? The same reason all of them fail. Now, not only do you have a comparative sample, right, but you can go test it. Now you can just go test it whenever you want to, right? That doesn't seem like it's very good for society in general. Like, for your parents to have open relationships and going out and, like, sleeping with other people. That seems like if the failure rate's that high, that would be bad.
I think that largely it also comes from a lack of honesty between people. That can be a huge contributing factor, is largely because of guilt, because of shame, because of people who don't think that's how it should be. So if we just
destigmatized it?
I think I'm not claiming that everything
just destigmatize
Wait a second, Andrew. I'm not claiming that everything would get better, and I'm also not claiming that open marriages are better than closed marriages. I would agree with you, at least from personal experiences, that's not my cup of tea. But I don't...
You were in an open relationship?
Not directly an open relationship, but like if you're not like officially dating, but people are seeing multiple people.
Yeah.
That's not my thing. Okay? But it doesn't mean I know people who that works for. It doesn't work for me.
Who?
But I'm not
No,
trying
you don't know anybody it's long-term work for.
Dude, I went to Oberlin College, man.
No, none of these people will long-term work for, basically. Basically none.
No, I don't think that's true at all.
It is true.
Okay.
Like, by the numbers, it's true.
Okay.
So, like, when it comes to open relationships, right, especially open marriages, that's usually one of the number one signs of failure, in fact, is that one couple or one partner asked to open up the relationship.
Okay.
Like, imagine that. Just think about that for a second. If a man's wife came to him and just wanted to be open and honest and said, listen, honey, I just want to go fuck this other guy. But that's not how she frames it. She's going to be nice like you. She's going to say, listen, there's some satisfaction issues that I have in the bedroom and this is going on. And that's how bad do you think that guy would feel, like, on a scale of 1 to 10?
Probably not great, but I think that
probably really bad, right?
Then I think that hopefully would initiate a conversation where he's like, "Oh, okay. Do you mind if we try out things that you like and we see if that's something that I'm okay with?" Or he could just say, "Fuck it. That's not something I'm okay with. If you choose to do that, I'm getting a divorce." That's fine. You're allowed to have that preference.
Yeah, if a woman came to you and said that she wanted to, like, open up your relationship to sleep with other men, right? Would that make you feel really bad?
It would make me realize there's a problem.
Yeah, would you want to stay in a relationship where that was the solution your partner proposed to you, that she would sleep with other men?
I would have a conversation with her. I don't know. It would really depend on exactly what she wanted. If she proposed that, actually, it would be a deal breaker if she wasn't talking to me about her needs. So, for example, if she was never complaining, granted, this is not a problem that I've had, but if she was talking about this and, like, never was vocalizing her dissatisfaction, and the first thing she said was, "I want to open the relationship," then I would be like, what the heck? Why didn't we discuss this earlier?
She just expressed her dissatisfaction for
a long time?
For a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I think we would probably break up then, because there seems to be an incompatibility there.
Yeah, so you just wouldn't do it. Now, what if she never would have vocalized any of this because she had no dissatisfaction because she never fucked anybody but you?
No.
What about that?
That's fucking weird.
Can you answer that? Hang on.
No, that's
Would
weird.
you have a preference, though, that if you took that same woman, right? Same woman, you really liked her, everything was great, and if it were the case that she'd had no comparative sample size, she would have stayed with you. Would you have preferred that?
No.
No.
No, I don't think so. But
How is that good for people's health and wellness, dude?
Andrew, it's really
wild.
Wait, Andrew, but can you acknowledge to me that it's kind of weird to not want someone to think you're the best, not because you're good at what you do, but just because they don't know any better?
No, I'm sorry. Hang on.
They don't know any better?
Hang on. This is such a stupid argument. Let me point out why it's stupid. If you lived in an island nation that had 1,000 people, right, and you were the very best at running whatever the marathon was that you ran on the island, and nobody was better than you.
Sure.
Is it not appropriate for you to think that you're the best because obviously globally, even though you don't know about them, there's like 1 million people who've broken every record you've ever broken?
Sure. What does that have to do with
so
this?
why is it inappropriate for that guy to think of himself as the best, and the people of that island nation to think of him as the best?
I don't think there's a problem with I don't
of
see
course not. Of course not.
Andrew, I don't see how your island example follows in
because
terms of
it's the same thing. She's an island when it comes to sex. She has no comparative. For as far as she's concerned, you're that track runner. You're the best. Nobody runs the marathon fucking better than you. And guess what? Even if they did, she'd have no contextualization any more than the guy in the island nation. And you think that that's fine in the island nation to glorify him, but for some reason inside of a relationship, it's not.
I don't care about the island example because I think it's a silly hypothetical that I don't care about.
Why? It's completely comparable.
You are mapping it so far from reality. Here's the point, Andrew.
It's the same reality.
Andrew.
Yeah.
I think the problem here is it's strange to not want someone to know what they like or know better, so you're all they know.
They do know what they like.
What do you?
They like you and what you're doing. They know it 100%.
Sure, because they've never seen anything else, which is just it's
Wait a
strange.
second. I'm sorry. Is it the case that they really like having sex with you? But it is also the case that it's possible they could really like having sex with someone else.
It is absolutely. It's
okay,
possible.
Great. Isn't that the case with every human being?
Of course it is.
So
Andrew,
if that's the case, then if it is the case that you happen to have a human being who doesn't have this massive comparative sample and she's super happy with that, why would you want to fuck that up?
I wouldn't. I'm not saying I would fuck it up, or I'm saying it would fuck it up.
Wouldn't it be good for society?
good for society if people have less sex?
They would be having more sex and more satisfactory sex.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
Well, then why is it that virgin couples, man and woman, by the way, report the most amount of sexual satisfaction over any other sexual demographic in the fucking existence of humanity?
Because largely, I think they are living lifestyles that are in accordance with the values that they hold. If other people who did not hold those values and had different desires were forced into that type of situation, it doesn't
fantastic.
It doesn't necessarily follow.
So how come it's
doesn't necessarily
secularist?
follow.
How come it's secularist and it's Hindus and it's Christians and it's Muslims and it's everybody across all demographics?
Yes.
Why? What would be the common denominator?
And those are people who are choosing those types of relationships, or were they forced into those types of relationships?
Here's the thing. If you're talking about, and I'll grant you this, if you're talking about like an arranged relationship, right? Sometimes they do report massive dissatisfaction. This I understand, right? Is the conditional because of the arranged marriage itself? I think you could make a case that there's at least some of that, right? But historically, most marriages were arranged. And in most Asian nations, they're still fucking arranged. And the satisfaction rate for virgins, even in arranged marriages, is still higher. It's still fucking higher.
And do you think that's a good... So I'm just curious, Andrew.
No, I'm not saying it's good.
I'm
just pointing out that it's true.
It is. So then do you think... And I'm making a hypothetical here. Maybe it's not the case. What if satisfaction rates in marriage were the best they could ever be if every marriage was arranged?
Oh, fuck yes. Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay,
you could never make a case why that would be bad.
I think so.
How?
Because I don't think that people should be choosing who other people's partners are.
Why? If that led to the best outcomes, you would have no argument for that.
So wait, then can I just make the same argument towards you about, you were talking about the whole incest and brother case?
What about it?
Then you're saying that there is a better reason as to why we shouldn't do that.
If it were the case, right, then, and you said it had the best outcomes, but you were still against it based on intuition. That's where you would have the inconsistency.
But I wasn't against it based on intuition.
You said intuitively, conditionally, you're intuitively against it.
Because
I literally told you the opposite.
Hold on, because I think for these cases, I think for these cases, our intuitions are responding to the very factors that we tried to stipulate out.
No, that's not always the case.
I think for this case, it absolutely is.
No, so
fine.
What are you talking about, bro?
Andrew, let me go back on my previous statement and say that if that situation that you provided, then yeah.
Then yes.
Sure. Yes.
Of course, because now you have to be consistent, because I point out yet another inconsistency. So of course
I don't remember saying that. I remember what I was doing, Andrew. What I was doing is I was contesting the realisticness of your hypothetical and saying that I don't think that would be borne out. I don't think that would be borne out in reality. I don't think that
incest.
No, that it would be good.
How? Wait, what do you mean?
You're saying that if the satisfaction rates were in those incestuous relationships were through the roof, then would you think that would be a fine thing? I was contesting that I don't think that would ever be borne out in reality. So in the hypothetical that you propose, sure, I'll accept a hypothetical that has no bearing on reality. Do you think that incestuous couples, there would be children who would be happy with that?
Well, I think by your metric, yes, there would be.
No, well, I mean, we can look at the already presented data of heterosexual couples.
And I think if you had, by the way, an incestuous lobby, the same way you have a gay lobby, who paid for all the same fucking studies that showed the outcomes, that I could have a massive publishing bias as well for basically any data that I wanted. Okay. Because the truth is that most of these...
You're making an unfalsifiable claim that we're making...
It's not unfalsifiable. I'll give you a claim. Here's the claim. Here's the claim. The claim is most LGBTQ and trans studies are funded by gay groups and gay adjacent groups. Okay. And that's who they're funded by. That is the truth.
Sure. And I've not looked into who funds every single study.
But I mean, that's why there's so much publishing bias.
Fine. Conditionally.
In fact, one of the biggest talking points for the left is that that's okay, though, especially in the trans community. It's okay that mostly it's trans advocate organizations who are paying for these studies because, well, nobody would look at it if they didn't. And it's like, it totally ignores the bias which would go into people who wanted those results.
So, Andrew, what I think instead you should do, instead of merely saying that these studies are BS because of the organizations that are funding them, just point out what's wrong with the research.
Yeah, well,
that's a better thing.
I do often.
So then the first part.
So like trans research, when we're talking about brain studies, I can point all of that out.
Okay.
When we're talking about incest studies, though, this isn't even a thing which is willing to be studied, right? Mostly because men like me are like, fuck no way. It's unbelievably fucking disgusting, right? We intuitively are against it. But for you, the outcomes guy, right? You shouldn't really have any issues whatsoever if there actually is an outcome which is preferable.
Well, Andrew, for one, you'd have to be putting people directly in harm's way and saying you have to have like an incestuous relationship.
No, they're just already existing.
If it already exists, you should study. I mean, if they already exist,
yes, exactly. So if the evidence shows that it is the case that incestuous relationships by two willing partners, and there's, by the way, incest
lead to better.
There are incest groups which do advocate for these fucking things, not kidding, right? And make the affirmative claim that they're happy. It's an unfalsifiable.
No, I think they're wrong.
Yeah, you think they're wrong that they're happy?
Wait. I think they're wrong that generally in these types of relationships that it does lead to the best outcome for the family. So that's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. What if they just wanted to have that relationship and they just wanted to have it?
Without children or something like that? I think the ethics of incest is an interesting philosophical question.
They're twin brothers. Mm-hmm. What's the problem?
What's the problem with it if they want to engage in consensual activity? I think it is strange, and I don't understand it. Andrew, here's the thing, though. Andrew, well, I don't...
It's strange?
Andrew.
Great argument, bro. It's strange.
Andrew, here's the problem. Is if we go through, for example, I just took a bioethics course, and we were talking about the ethics of incest, and the fact that it is really hard to pin down the exact wrong of incest when looking at it directly if you remove the genetic factors, if you remove a lot of the familial factors. The problem is I'm not going to get into an argument where I'm defending incest on
But you already
podcast.
did multiple times.
No, I didn't defend
You've defended
incest.
it multiple times.
I did not defend incest because I said that's not the case. It will not be good for these people. So they should not do it.
The reason we sidelined, and I'm not going to let you kind of like evade the point, back to this idea of sample size, this is what we're actually talking about, which led to this. Why is it, again, that you think that if it is the case that when people get married virgins, right, they report the largest amount of happiness and their relationships stay together basically more than almost any other demographic, by the way. It's fucking insane.
Sure.
Why is it that you would not want to advocate for that in society, even if you didn't make laws, but you just made social advocation towards it?
I'm also not advocating in favor of like insane hookup culture because of what it does to a lot of people.
Dude, answer my question.
Wait, no, I think it's fine. Absolutely advocate.
So what if we had government policy?
No, that's different.
Hang on.
Okay, continue.
Well, I don't understand. Don't you want government policy which says that being LGBTQ is okay?
Government policy which permits people to exercise
No.
their
Rainbow
rights.
flags in the White House?
I don't really care about that. I think I don't really care where the flags are. I think if that's going to just rile a bunch of people.
But what would actually be the problem? There's no law which is restricting anything. But the government, right, in state organizations from the top down, right, promoted instead that people with low body counts and who are not promiscuous tended to report much higher happiness levels, and their marriages stayed together better. And for the health of the nation, they'd prefer to move a population towards that. What would be wrong with that?
I don't think there would necessarily be anything wrong with that.
That's what I advocate for.
Okay, and I'm not fully against that. I'm just saying.
You know who is? Feminists.
They're not entirely. No,
yes.
They're not entirely against it.
Which feminist organization?
Hold on. Andrew, here's the problem with this. You're saying that individuals advocating for that as a good lifestyle because it works for them and it works for other people. I didn't say individuals
working for that. What did I say?
What do you say?
What's my position?
Your position is that there should be government-funded propaganda.
Is that individuals?
Hold on. Government-funded propaganda.
Is that individuals?
Wait, I was talking about the reason that feminist organizations would be against that government style of push.
Why?
Okay.
Why?
Because it is prescribing onto everyone a type of lifestyle that doesn't work for everyone. It's saying that you should do this.
Wait. What's the prescription?
The prescription is you should wait until sex to have marriage, or wait until marriage to have sex.
And the outcomes are better.
The outcomes can be better for certain people.
Well, no, for most everybody, the outcomes are better. At least from the reported data. When you say like certain people, it's like, okay, dude, yeah, I guess you could make the case that like grape is bad for certain people.
No.
For certain people.
No, it's bad for everyone.
No, it's only bad for certain people. Here,
Andrew.
like there's women, you agree, who have orgasmed during SA.
That has nothing to do with whether it's SA.
Bro.
That has nothing to do with whether it's SA. Are you kidding me?
Bro, I didn't say whether or not it's SA. I said during SA.
Yeah, what does it have to do with anything?
Well, bro, if that's the case, right, then was it bad for them?
Yes.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because there are overriding harms than just orgasm. I'm not saying that's not the case. What?
Perfect. So then here's the case then. The case is like when you say for some people, right? The reason you keep saying that is because even though it's the vast overwhelming majority of people, you want to like create this little minutia outlier, right? Is it logically possible that there's ever been a woman who's been SA'd who'd enjoyed it?
I am not going to.
Can you answer my question? Is it logically possible?
Logically possible? Sure.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, but that's not. I'm not ascribing anything to that.
Do you think there's ever been a single woman who's been SA'd and has enjoyed it?
I'm not going to answer the question.
Answer the question.
I'm not going to answer the question.
But because then I can't say some people.
I'm not going to answer whether women enjoy being raped.
That's not what I asked you.
Whether a woman has enjoyed being raped.
If there's ever been one, do you think there's ever been one?
I'm not. No, I'm not answering.
You don't think there has been?
I don't know, and I'm not going to answer.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to answer.
I'm not going
to. This is such a weird thing. This is such a weird thing.
What's
to get
wrong with
on
answering
about.
the question?
Because I'm not going to contribute to rhetoric that tries to say that there is anything good about SA.
Who said there's anything good about it?
You just said that some women orgasm, therefore that is a good of it.
No. I was running an internal critique and saying if it is the case of X, then Y. That's not me advocating for that position. Don't lie. That's one. And two, when we move into this, right, here's what I'm saying to you. And I'll ask this question again. Do you think that there's been at least one woman who's ever existed that was SA'd and liked it?
I don't know.
You don't think? What do you think?
I don't know. I'm not going to answer that question, Andrew.
Because then I could say.
Because I'm not.
Because then I could say, well, why make the prescription shouldn't SA?
No.
Because some people don't like it.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same shit, dude.
Andrew.
Same
Andrew,
shit, bro.
do you think? Wait. Oh, hold on. Wait a second here. Do you think the harm of SA of grape is equivalent to the harm of those who have more promiscuous lifestyles?
No.
No? Okay, so there is a differential in harm.
What does that have to do with anything?
Then
I could still say some people by your same metric.
But then if we
about?
even take that metric that there was some, there would be an overwhelming harm that would overwhelm that.
So
and I'm not saying, but I'm saying the harm is not equivalent between that and the
doesn't
thing
need to be equivalent. All it needs to be is analogous for some people. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Why does it need to be an equivalency for harm? All it needs to do is be an overriding harm. Doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be the next Holocaust.
I don't think it's an overriding harm.
It doesn't need to be the next Holocaust for it to be an overriding harm,
I'm not saying
bro.
it has to be. I'm saying that I don't think the harm of that
So then why are you
making?
So then why are you fallaciously arguing this? Right, by saying, well, wait a second, Andrew, I'm not going to answer this question because if I do, then you could say some people the same way that I am.
No, because Andrew, why don't you utilize